Oh, good evening or good morning, ladies and gentlemen, depending on where, of course, you are tuning in from. It's James here at ProPix TV Studios in Vancouver, British Columbia, coming to you for another episode of Live Chat with James. Tonight, we're actually going to take a look at part two of a series that we're doing on youth violence in terms of prevention, intervention, and awareness. And that, again, is something that we feel is very important to bring the education to people in need of the resources and to learn more about the issues surrounding youth violence. Now, a lot of times when we see mass acts of violence or just violence in general, there are warning signs and indicators that are out there. And all too often, people overlook those and they look back and they can identify the warning signs afterwards. And they say that hindsight is always 20/20, but I think that a big part of it as well is that people don't know what to watch for. They don't understand the dynamics of violence. And with that said, in many cases, the warning signs and indicators, as well as even bullying, which is a type of violence as well. So in part two, we're going to talk about various different types of violence, and we'll also examine some other factors that play into it. Now, back when I was in college many years ago at Vancouver Community College, and I had an instructor there by the name of Steve Musson, a great guy, very knowledgeable, and also a published author. If you have the chance, check it out. He has written books such as How to Talk So Kids Will Listen, and Listen So Kids Will Talk, and other books as well. Very well written, very intelligent man, and very smart in that field. So again, we're going to take a look because at that time I'd actually written a report on Peter Bloz's theory of adolescence as a second individuation process. And I actually really think there's a lot of good information there. So I'm going to summarize that for you so you can understand exactly what that theory entailed. Now, he was a psychoanalyst and did a lot of work within youth and the development, and of course, as I stated, what was known as the second individuation process. And with that, of course, there are different theories in terms of development and how things roll that way, and in life in general. So let's take a look at, or let's talk a bit about that type of analysis in terms of what he created and what he wrote. Now, when you look at adolescence as the second individuation process, it's almost like looking at a teenage metamorphosis. And Bloz unlocks the second birth, or of the self and the development stages. And when you look at that, you forget the awkward phases and rebellious streaks. And instead, what if adolescence isn't just about a messy transition into adulthood, but a profound second birth of the self? Now, that's the groundbreaking idea that was proposed by Peter Bloz, and his theory of adolescence as the second individuation process is illuminating the often turbulent journey from childhood dependence to adult autonomy. And I think that when you think about the terrible twos when you're raising children, you can relate to that. That was the first individuation process where they are starting to learn the values and learn about life and try to mimic behaviors. And again, when you hit the teenage years, you start to go through that again. Now, Bloz's compelling framework suggests that the dramatic changes of the teenage years aren't merely physical, but that the crucial psychological mirroring of an earlier equally vital stage, and that was the separation individuation process of infancy, and that's what I just touched on. So just as toddlers painstakingly learn to differentiate themselves from their primary caregivers, adolescents embark on a similar yet far more complex quest for independence. These are the values and the systems that are going to actually form who they are as they grow into adulthood, but as they progress throughout the rest of their life as well, and eventually become parents themselves. Now, think of it as a psychological reboot, and that is how Dr. Evelyn Reed explained it. And she is a local child and adolescent psychologist. In infancy, the challenge is to physically separate and recognize oneself as distinct. In adolescence, the real work is disengaging from the internalized versions of our parents, the rules, the voices, the exceptions that we've carried with us since childhood. Now, this isn't about rejecting parents outright, Blows argued, but rather a sophisticated restructuring of the psyche. And teenagers grapple with these deeply ingrained representations, questioning, reevaluating, and ultimately integrating what serves their emerging identity while shredding what no longer fits. So again, this often manifests as a push and pull dynamic, and that's something that you see with youth all the time. And a lot of people, again, refer to that as youth rebellion or, just acting out. But there's a lot going on, not only in terms of the development in the physical puberty stage, but also in terms of that mental psyche and that mental development that's moving forward. They're trying to form who they are going to be for the rest of their life and what values that they are going to bring forward. And those are learned not only from parents, but also from peers and other influential people within their lives. Sometimes it can be misinformed by, the media and, when they're looking up to non-realistic, thinking that they have to conform to those non-realistic standards. That can cause conflict as well. But again, you're looking alongside and or the long term, and that's when they start questioning and evaluating and ultimately integrating what serves, as I said, their emerging identity. This often manifests as the push and pull, as we were just talking about, and that marks a yearning for independence alongside moments of regression and even renewed dependence. Now, the stakes are high. According to Blows, the successful navigation of this second individuation leads to the formation of a more stable, mature, and independent adult identity. It's the period where individuals consolidate all of their sense of self, solidify their values, and prepare to forge their own path in the world. And that is exactly what they're doing. Now, it can be often messy, it can be exhilarating, and sometimes a very painful process. And that's why you have so much emotional turmoil within youth, and that is normal. Now, when you look at it and understand, it is necessary for that second birth, and it can provide immense comfort and guidance if you understand it from that point of view. And that's not only just for the youth, but also for the parents and their families as well. Now, it reframes the typical adolescent struggles not as defiance, but as an essential work of becoming who they are meant to be. And let's face it, it is not something that we want them to be as parents, but in what they want to be, what they want to become. And when you try to force them into a path of following your desires and your vision, then sometimes you can overlook that, what they need and what they envision, and you want to encourage them, because if they are not truly happy with themselves, then of course that's going to create greater conflict. So the next time you witness a teenager pushing boundaries, expressing new opinions, or even retreating into their own world, consider that a vital step in their unique journey or self-discovery. Now, as far as Peter Blows so eloquently poised, basically, adolescence is more than just a phase. It's the crucible in which a truly independent self is forged. Now, the problem is that if they don't go through that second individuation process in the abilities or to lay those foundations, then of course it creates a very confusing and tumultuous time within themselves, emotionally or physically, because the mental state and our psyche can actually manifest into physical symptoms. So, maybe depression would lead to a stomachache, to headaches, to no level of energy and lethargy, and all of these different things at times. But it's important to understand that also if they have skipped that phase of individuation on the second process, then they still have not fully formed their values and their sense of direction. And that can actually play into where you see certain individuals who may not have matured or come to a point where they actually understand their own value systems and created their own personalities, and are more reliant on parents and not, instead of being more independent, then of course that could be that they haven't come full circle in that process, and that can stymie them in terms of their future successes. Sometimes it takes breaking down those barriers and those walls in the mental capacity sense for them to actually move forward. Now, it's not saying that there's a failure, that the person's going to be a forever failure if they are having struggles as young adults or in their later adolescent years. What it means is that they may be delayed in forming that second individuation process, or that they need to find a way to do that, and that can sometimes take longer. Now, we know that the brain is not fully developed and such within youth to the adult stage till about the age 24. So again, there's all of that confusion still, even though they may be in college, they may be starting university and such, there is still formation going on. There is still learning going on. There's still emotional maturing going on. And when you miss the emotional maturing portion, that again can have a big play in how they react to situations, whether it's social situations, family dynamics, and so forth. So again, you've got to look at that and try to give them the tools so that they can make those adjustments and learn what is important to them. What is going to be their value system? What is their outlook? What are their goals, their ambitions, and their dreams? But it also a realistic point of, okay, how are you going to achieve them in keeping aligned with your values as an individual? So that, again, when they struggle emotionally with that, that can cause frustration. It can come out in anger. It can come out in outbursts that were unexpected, or that can be considered by some to be, over exaggerated or overarching. And that really, you've got to take a step back sometimes and just take a deep breath and understand that they are going through a lot, that the brain is trying to compute, but also it's not coming through externally. So you may not be able to understand that there is a lot of confusion, or just a lot of work going on there internally to try and adjust to the independence and the autonomy of being an adult. So again, that can come out in different ways. If someone hasn't got the tools to be able to handle the emotional maturity or the emotions and work through them, then again, as I said, that can come out in acts of violence or aggression, or just really over emotional responses to things that we would see as less important, or just not that big of a deal. But to them in their world, they are more focused on themselves in the mental capacity and the mental state of development. So therefore, to them, it can feel, something that, is like a bag of feathers can feel like a ton of bricks to them on their chest or on their shoulders, and not be seen externally again. So you've got to understand that there's a lot more at play. A lot of adults look at their youth and they say, oh, well, when I was your age. Well, first of all, the world is a lot different than it was back then. And let's face it, we definitely grew up in a different time. We grew up while the internet was evolving. We grew up without cell phones attached to our hips. We grew up without social media. And therefore, we had a lot less input in terms of the media that plays in and feeds into our minds. We watch television, we watch motion pictures, we listen to music. But again, we weren't as just we weren't just overwhelmed with the media and the conflicting reports. And that goes through to politics, it goes through to social norms, it goes through to influencers online that try to encourage what are unrealistic, whether it is a body image or an emotional image, or making it appear that they can be successful in being an influencer themselves, when that may not be realistic. And unfortunately, a lot of times what the youth see is the end result, what they want to achieve, as opposed to the process to get them there. And that, again, is a big part of trying to give them those tools as they grow, to that you're not going to be an overnight success in most cases. On a rare occasion, that might happen, but it's very rare, and it's not something to be realistically looking for. So again, that can play into the frustration or the anger or the impatience and the unhealthy expectations. So again, it's all about developing healthy expectations as well. Now, when you have youth who are going through those processes, again, you're going to be wanting to pull your hair out at times, and the beauty of it, though, is that if you are patient and work through it and try to give them the tools as they grow, it makes that easier. But also, you're going to be very proud of the individual as they find their ground under them and move forward in life. And it's, as I always told my sons, is that if you can be proud at the end of the day when you look in the mirror and see who's looking back at you, then that is success. It's not defined by material items. It's not defined by how much you have in your bank account. Because at the end of the day, you need to look in the mirror and be proud of who you see and who you've become. And if that is not the case, then you need to reevaluate where you are and what you are doing in order to align with your own personal beliefs and your own personal ethics and morals. So again, that is a sign of success. If you can be happy, whether you are a garbage man or a brain surgeon, it doesn't matter. If you are looking in the mirror and you're proud of yourself at the end of the day, then that is the biggest part of success in life. Now, we're going to take a look again at the book that we've been talking about, and it's Youth Violence and International Crisis, and it's Fighting Violence by and Against Youth. And we are going to take a look at child exploitation in the context of youth violence, and really we're going to be looking at a lot of different areas of youth violence. And that, as I said, includes violence by and against youth. And I think that child exploitation has become a very big topic, given things like Harvey Weinstein and Jeffrey Epstein, and and who knows who else, from Trump on down to Epstein's friends. Now, I'm going to just read this portion here, and then we'll talk about it a bit. And we might skip a few chapters as we go through over the next few days and come back to them. So I may not necessarily go through the book in order, just because of the fact that I want to keep the flow going, but also to try and tie in different areas. Once again, if you're interested in getting a copy of this book, Youth Violence and International Crisis, just send us an email or a direct message, and we can send you a free PDF copy of the book. And it is available in certain universities throughout North America and certain community libraries as well. So you can find that. And just for reference, I'll give you the ISBN number is 9781449983529. Now, I do believe it's out of publication on Amazon. It's no longer being published there. It is being currently updated and modernized, so there will be a new edition coming out. And again, if you send us a request, we'll send you a PDF copy of this and also send you an alert when the new copy and new version is available. So, child exploitation can take on many forms and many names. We could be talking about child sexual exploitation, which is what most people automatically think of when they hear the term. There's also physical exploitation, such as sweatshops who rely on child labor to produce their merchandise or provide services. There's also criminal exploitation, such as drug dealers who use kids to run drugs, knowing that if the child they use is young enough, they cannot be prosecuted by authorities. Out of fear, the children do not give up the person or persons who are exploiting them. If you feel you know someone's being exploited, make sure you speak out, as they may be too scared to speak for themselves. If someone is exploiting one child or youth, chances are very high that they are exploiting others as well. This is a very serious issue around the globe, and we need to work together to stop it. International cooperation between police forces is seeing a higher number of these people prosecuted, but we need to further educate the general public on this issue. Human trafficking also is on the rise around the world, and people are not even aware of it happening in their own backyard. And we'll go into a bit more detail in that in a few minutes and just discuss that. Because again, how they're targeting children and youth, as well as the importance of being aware. Now, an example of this on a national level in North America would be adults who look for teens with trouble at home, who have been runaways, who are in foster care system or group homes. They befriend them and promise to look out for them as they build their comfort level. And again, let's just back up just a quick second here, is that it doesn't necessarily even have to be adults. It can be peers who have been recruited into certain activities as well, whether it's gang activity and they're trying to recruit more members, or drug deals, or sexual exploitation and so forth. So again, it could be youth as well. As they build their comfort level with the child or youth, they start them into the drugs and other activities. And once they are able to convince them, a lot of times they use drugs to create that dependency and that codependency on their abuser or the person that's exploiting them. Now, once they have them either hooked on drugs or convinced they cannot make it on their own, or just simply fearful for their lives or the lives of those who they love, these individuals who are targeting them start using them as prostitutes, drug dealers, and other things as well. Now, often they will relocate them to another city far from where they were, and that is also to further isolate them from family or friends who may be able to give them help, and again gives them less of a sense of being able to escape from their victimizers. Now, again, that reduces the chance for them to get free and go home, whether that is within the regular familial setting or if it is in a youth care or group home setting. So again, it's very important that you are aware of that, and that your child knows that no matter what, that they can contact you. Now, for any of those who are out there who are runaways and considering going home and looking for, the opportunity to escape from being victimized, you can contact, again, the local police departments will help you. But if you don't feel safe there and you just want to get home, then you can also reach out to Greyhound in the US. They're no longer operating in Canada, but they have had a program for many years in which they will provide free transportation to youth who are trying to get home and to return to the safety of the family or to their hometowns and such if they've run away. So again, you can reach out to Greyhound and double check that is still a program, but they've been doing it for decades, and just great respect to them because they know the value of family, and Greyhound has been operating forever and ever, and I can go through the history of Greyhound with you. But at the end of the day, the important thing is that they will provide complimentary tickets to get you home if you are a runaway, or if your child's run away and you're trying to figure out how to get them home, talk to Greyhound bus lines. So in any event, international trafficking is happening frequently and takes the form of promising individuals, both male and female, that they could have a much better life in another country. They promise them real jobs and education, among other things. When they have smuggled into the new country, they are sold off to gangs or to others and forced to work in sweatshops, drug labs, prostitution rings, bathhouses, massage parlors, and much more. Once again, they also will often try to get them addicted on drugs to create that dynamic of dependence. Now, rarely do these victims look for help of the local authorities as they fear deportation, death of themselves or family members in their homeland. They're convinced that local authorities are corrupt and work for the gangs, and sometimes they do. And some children and youth are so embarrassed that they were fooled into this, and what they've had to do at the hands of these victimizers. So again, it can be about the embarrassment and humiliation and feeling like they are to blame when that's not the case. Now, it's essential that if you have concerns or know of such happenings, that you report it to your local or national authorities. And again, such an important statement because all too often people are afraid to speak out. But if you don't speak out, then you can't have yourself, you can't save yourself or others who are in the same position. So you have an opportunity to save others and to help make your community safer or others safer. Now, we can look at other areas, but we're going to take a look now. We're going to skip forward a chapter here, and we're going to take a look at the business of gangs and violent crime. Because youth violence is a very complex issue and it varies in many different facets, I'm going to focus on this section now, and we'll talk about that. But we'll be jumping, as I said, through the next couple of days. We'll be talking about online addiction, whether that is social media, whether it is gambling, whether it is porn, whether it is other types of addiction there. And then we'll also take a look at online bullying, cyber stalking, and how some children and youth can become victims of sexual predators through the internet as well, and how to protect yourself and your children. And then we'll take a look at a lot of other areas as well over the next several episodes. Now, the talk of reverse onus bail has been the subject in some areas, and that instead is looking to reduce violence, repeat offenders, and to decrease recidivism rates within violent offenders. Now, essentially what they want to do is just rework the bail system so it is more on the individual to prove why they should be given bail, as opposed to the onus on the system that they must provide bail unless they can prove that there's risks there. So again, it just kind of reverses the dynamic some when it comes to violent and repeat or professional life long criminals. So again, you want to try to break that cycle. And unfortunately, in these days, we see a lot of interaction with law enforcement or a lot of crimes that go unreported when it's considered petty crime, whether that is minor thefts, whether it's car break and enters and such. I mean, for example, in Canada, a lot of times when your car is broken into or you have a break and enter, things like this, it's not considered a very top priority or even really much of a priority. They quite often will do a report over the telephone where they don't send officers out to get statements, to do fingerprints, all of that, when actually that is contributing in some ways to the higher criminality and the higher crime rates, because you're not catching youth and you're not catching them as they start their crime and some of them their career in crime. Instead, you are waiting until they get to more serious offenses in a lot of cases where they are interacting with the criminal justice system. If you are taking the smaller crimes more seriously and investigating them and catching people earlier in their criminal careers, then you have a much higher chance of reducing recidivism and to help them to correct the behavior and move them on to a more productive path in life, and that is also an important step. Now, when you talk about gangs and violent crime, of course, you're also looking at reasons why they target certain individuals. Well, let's take a look at the military, for example. They know who they are searching for. They know who they are trying to recruit. They know what values and what skills they want in soldiers or in Air Force members, Navy, and so forth. So they're looking for certain types of personalities, certain skills, certain experience, and a lot of times the youth. Now, The same thing goes for the gangs. They know how to find vulnerable individuals. They are looking for youth who are maybe feeling that they don't belong to a peer group where they are not accepted. They are isolated. They may be abused at home, or maybe a part of the foster system or child protective services. All of these different things where it has really played havoc on their emotional development, and they don't feel that they have people that care for them, that love them, that will look out for them. So this is one area that they prey on. So by developing that false sense of security, that false sense of belonging, that false sense of unity, and someone looking out for them, that nurturing, that caring environment, by creating that falsehood, then they are able to bring in those youth and recruit them into the gang activity. When you look at other areas, now, for example, back in the 90s in South Central Los Angeles, I'll use as an example, there was rampant crime and murders and violence going on in South Central Los Angeles, whether it was Watts, Crenshaw, Culver City, different areas of Los Angeles saw a huge problem with gang violence. And again, when they were looking at it, some of the issues we can get into, the crack epidemic and all of those things. But at the end of the day, what youth were seeing is that you see two-parent families or single-parent families where the parents are working their asses off. They are working literally their fingers to the bone. They are working two jobs, and they're still struggling just to put food on the table back at that time. Now, instead, what the youth were seeing is that they could look down the block and see a drug dealer driving a beautiful car with women around them because they had all this money. It wasn't for personality or for, mental connection. It was a lot of times it was about the money and the power. They saw that these gangbangers had, a lot of gold hanging around their necks, and they were able to buy the things they wanted. They had the best in terms of, the latest Nike shoes, the, designer clothing. All of this stuff is very materialistic, but at the same time, that is, as youth grow, they are taught that these are valuable things. If they have all of these things, then they're going to be accepted. If they have all of these things, then they're going to have a great life. And when they look at the drug dealer, they don't see the risks directly in front of them. They don't see that the majority of drug dealers and those involved in the gangs at the time were either going to end up doing life in prison, or likely they would end up dead, shot by the rivals or even their own gang members. So again, they created that false sense of security by reaching out and providing that to the youth. So again, the youth are looking, parents are working, two jobs, working three jobs, barely getting by, and they look at the drug dealer, just looks like he's having a great time and he's just rolling in all of this cash. And that, again, was another enticement of trying to attract youth. Now, the other things that you want to look at is that they can also prey on the vulnerable, because what they will do is bring them in and try to encourage them to take part in certain gang activities or criminality. Now, it's not immediate. They slowly transition, slowly get them into the different activities until they get jumped in as a gang member or, of the girlfriend of a gang member and things like that. But during that time period, back in the 80s and 90s, the women were actually, the girls were getting into developing their female gangs as well. And they actually could be at times much more violent and ferocious than the male gangs, because they felt that they had to be in order to challenge the male gangs that were out there and to prove that they can be just as ruthless or even more violent and ruthless than their male counterparts. So again, it just because you are looking at it being a girl, who may be hanging out with your child that is trying to influence them, and you get a bad sense or you see certain warning signs, again, don't be fooled by that, because again, the female gangs can be just as ruthless or more so when it comes to recruiting, but also in transitioning your youth or your child into a criminal activity. So again, things that can deter that, of course, are different things such as extracurricular activities, whether it is, organized soccer, football, hockey, different recreation activities outside courses and that, whether it's cooking classes that your kids are interested in, different recreation programs, boys and girls clubs, just different things to keep them occupied and to give them the opportunity to have less idle time on their hands, and they're not as focused on the drug dealers or the gang activity. Instead, they are surrounded by like-minded individuals when it comes to their acceptance and their acceptance into peer settings and peer groups. So again, a big importance on that level. Now, when you look at other areas of criminality and you look at youth violence, a lot can be said for the social circles in the school. And it's not only the social circles in the school that can have an impact, whether it is fellow students who are bullying or are violent towards an individual, and by acting out they feel that they are regaining that sense of control or that power over others. You can also look at the various points that the bully can sometimes be a school administrator, a school teacher, a teaching assistant. There are different dynamics that happen within groups when you get that number of people together. And unfortunately, yes, there can be teachers who are bullies, and often they are protected by the union or by the school itself. The school doesn't want to take a liability issue there either. So it is very essential that you take the lead to stand up for your child, but also discuss it. Don't go flying off the handle when your child reports to you such things. You don't want to go flying off the handle. You want to do it in a calm and calculated process, including your child in the process, so that this way you can both agree and discuss what the options are, what the potential outcomes are, what your goals are by dealing with it in that way, and just find one that addresses both concerns, you and your child, because your child has to go back to that school. Your child has to be there every day. So you want to make sure that they feel safe and comfortable, but at the same time, you want to make sure that you deal with issues that are impacting them. Now, when you look at other issues of violence or bullying within the schools, you may notice that your child's grades are dropping, and this can also happen when your child is being influenced by outside activity as well, when it comes to gangs, drugs, and other pressures that are out there. A lot of times when you look at the grade drops or the withdrawal from certain social programs or extracurricular activity, there is a fear because they are in, they could be threatened by others. So therefore, let's take, for example, the school situation. They feel less comfortable in school. They are stressing in class about what's going to happen in between the bells, between first period and second period, or blocks, or at recess for the younger kids, at lunch break, or after school. And when they are focusing on those type of things, then it makes it tougher for them to comprehend and retain the information that they are learning in the classroom. So it's not that your child may be disengaged intentionally, but instead they are concerned about other issues going on and other concerns that they have. And again, if you have a school that is constantly subjected to threats, to school lockdowns, to mass shooter type practices or rehearsals or drills, whatever you want to call them, then again, you have put that fear into a child's mind at a conscious or subconscious level that could definitely play a role in their ability to focus and retain the information in the classroom that they're trying to be taught or that they're trying to learn. So again, that can play a very influential part about on how their grades are dropping, or they have less interest at school. They are more subject to headaches or upset stomachs where they don't want to go to school in the morning, or you have to struggle and fight with them to get them going. There's different things behind it that you may be overlooking, or when you ask your child, is everything okay, that they may not be ready to talk to you about it yet. And, sometimes they will lie. And that is because they may have concerns about speaking out, about the ramifications or the repercussions of doing that. They may feel that they are being weak, that they are not, that they're not protecting themselves, that they're doing something wrong. So there's many different reasons why they may not come out to you. It may be that they are very comfortable talking to you about a lot of things, but these certain issues they're having challenges with. And again, when you combine into that the theory of adolescence as a second individuation process, again, there's a lot of mental development that's going on that they are also toying with or trying to sort out, in that they want to be more independent, and by coming to mom or dad, they may feel that they are reverting away from that independence, which can be tough as well. So again, a lot of different reasons why this could or could not be. So tomorrow we will take a look at addiction, we'll take a look at bullying, and we will answer questions. So if you have any questions, by all means, put them in the comment section, and we will address them in the next several episodes as we go through and continue to learn about youth violence, prevention, intervention, and of course, try to give you the tools to handle it, whether you are a youth, whether you're a parent, whether you're a teacher. It takes a community, as they say, to raise a child, and that is so true. Once again, we look at the 3 pillars that we discussed in the last episode, and that is community, family, and school. And those are the 3 main pillars of a child's development and their world as they go from kindergarten right through to graduation, not only in high school, but also through college and university at some stages. So again, it's been great to have this conversation with you, and we'll look forward tomorrow night at approximately 12:05 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, where we'll continue this conversation and look at other areas of youth violence prevention, intervention, and awareness, and some other issues that may be impacting your child's life as they hit adolescence and into early adulthood. So I hope that you've learned something from this. Once again, I'm James Cousineau, coming to you live from ProPix TV studios in Vancouver, British Columbia. Stay safe out there, folks. Don't forget that you can, if you don't want to put comments in the public comment section, you can always email ProPix Canada. It's PROPICS Canada @gmail.com. More than happy to answer questions. Or if you want a PDF copy of the book, then we'd be happy to send you that free complimentary copy of the book in PDF version. If you have any questions, by all means reach out, and that would be great to know where you're watching from. So in the comment section, by all means, feel free to let me know if you're logging in from the UK, from Canada, from the US, from Spain. We get viewers and people from all around the world watching the show. So we are happy to have you join us, and always happy to know where you're watching from. And in closing, don't forget that we also take your suggestions for topics that you would like discussed on Live Chat with James. So you can always be a part of it by sending us your suggestions for topic ideas, for stories that we can create and bring to this little screen. Once again, folks, if you are interested in supporting the work of ProPix Canada Media and our educational programming, as well as other programs, and our ProPix Canada Media Fund for Good, where we try to help people who are in positions of need. You can find the link at propixcanada.com, and you just click on the link for the PPCM Fund for Good, and you can donate online. Once again, folks, this is James Cousineau coming to you from the ProPix TV studios in Vancouver, British Columbia. Take care, stay safe, and thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe.